valuing a startup different to valuing an established business? Well, valuing a startup can be quite tricky because a startup by its nature doesn't have a track record. So when you're valuing an established business, you have a track record. You've got existing profits, you've got existing financials that you can work with, you've got a client base. Yes, you do make assumptions about future growth, but usually you can validate those by checking against how the business has done in the past, discussions with management. With a startup, it's a little bit trickier. We still apply the same principles, but there's a lot more uncertainty. It's a lot more based on the assumptions. So with a startup, often the things like the discount rate that you're using would be a lot higher because there's more uncertainty and more risk attached to that. It's important to understand, often with a startup, if it's a completely new idea, it's very, very difficult. You've got to assess, do you think that people will buy the product or the service that you're selling? How big is the potential market, for instance? And then also, you have to assess the owners. What sort of track record do they have? So startup valuations can be tricky. And often they don't kind of have the same sort of weight or credibility as the valuation of an established business. And that's why startups are risky. So if you're raising money into a startup, people are going to question you, they're going to interrogate you before they put money into your business, and it's because you don't have that track record. There are certain startups where it's easier to value. So if you're starting up, for instance, a franchise restaurant chain, opening up a McDonald's in your town, those are sometimes a little bit easier because you have reference points of McDonald's opening up in similar towns like yours. So those kind of business models are sometimes easier to value as a startup, but generally startups place a high reliance on assumptions and there's a lot more uncertainty attached to the valuations.